So I have dismantled the sim yet again. I'm down just to the very basic frame here. All of the console, the main instrument panel, etc. That's all been removed, and the bits are kind of lying around my room here, all disassembled. And I'm going to be replacing that TV over there with a new one. And the new one is in the box here that you can see. Whereas the old one is a 43-inch TV, the new one is a 50-inch TV. One of the problems with my previous arrangement in the temporary sim was the way that the TV was mounted. And in this photo, you can see that the TV is mounted quite high up in order to clear the glare shield, and is brought quite a long way towards me. And as a result, in order to get anything approaching the correct perspective, I have to both tilt my camera back, which you've seen me do in videos, which introduces distortion to the picture, and then I have to tilt the monitor forward to compensate for that distortion so that things look approximately right. And it would be much easier if, like most people, my monitor center line was approximately where my eye line is going to be. And so that's what I'm doing right now. In fact, that line you can see drawn on the wall there, which is otherwise full of holes. See my previous video if you want to understand why there's so many holes in that wall. But that line is the eye line. When I'm sitting in the chair facing the sim, that's roughly where my eye is. And so the center of the screen needs to be at that line. So the new screen is going to be mounted behind the console, and it's going to be standing straight up on a shelf that I'm about to build. I've got all the measurements for it, so I know exactly where the shelf should be. But in order to accommodate that shelf, I've got to bring this whole framework forward to allow the shelf and the TV to fit behind it. And then once the TV is mounted and in place, I can put this whole structure back, but I'm going to need to adapt it a little bit in order to make it come further out than it currently does. And I'm also going to take the opportunity to do some additional work, because underneath here, if we look at the framework underneath, you can see it's only got a full frame on this side. It used to have one in the middle and on that side. Now it's just got this frame at the back. The trouble is, that's based on the original width of the footwell, which was 500 millimeters, but my new pedals, my Thrustmaster pedals, which are here, they are rather more than 500 mil wide. They are in fact about 620 wide, I believe, maybe a little bit wider. Let's call it 650. And they're not accommodated there. Now, it doesn't matter because I don't have front posts. However, what's become obvious in the use of the sim is that the pedal should be further back. So there needs to be more distance between my seat and the pedal, and I can't reasonably pull the seat back any further because then I won't be able to use the yoke properly, and I really can't extend the yoke. So in a real airplane, the pedals would be further back inside the footwell, and the footwell would run further back than this one does for obvious reasons, because I've made it thinner than it originally was. And so bringing the whole framework forward, as I'm going to do, that's great. But then that means I've got the opportunity to push the pedals further back and create a slightly more accurate seating situation. However, can't do that with that framework in place. I'm going to have to work out some kind of way of moving and extending that frame at the back, because we still need the support at the back. It can't just hang on the wall. But I need some way to extend it. And then what I'll probably do is also put a proper support in at the front of the frame there on the left-hand side, and again stagger that out off to one side, so I've got 650 mil. So I'll be doing that as well. So work on this frame and creating a shelf, which again will be framework so it rests on the floor, on which the TV will go, and then that just needs to be secured to the wall in one place. So once I've done that, I will bring you back, show you the result, and then we can put the TV up and see how it all looks. And then, provided I'm happy with that, I can start reassembling all of the sims. So I've got quite a lot of work ahead of me. So yeah, let's get on with that right now. Okay, so here is the stand for the TV. As you can see, the base of the TV is still going to be reasonably high up, but that should get the middle of the screen bang on where my eye line is. Mostly made this from recycled bits of wood. I had some 18mm plywood sheet lying around. I got the top from that. Then the side pieces there are actually pieces from my old projector screen frame. So I thought easy to reuse these. They're 24mm ply, so they're nice and sturdy. All they got to do is take the weight though, and then going to anchor it in the wall. I need to work out exactly what position it's going to be in. I need that leg on the left to be far enough to the left to clear the footwell space for the pedals. As I mentioned earlier, I need to expand the space available for that and change the supporting arrangements on this framework. So I'll work out exactly where it goes, and then I'll just put a roll plug in the wall to hold it. It really only needs to exert a little bit of force, because the frame will butt up right against this and will actually effectively fix it in place once I refix the frame to the wall. So yeah, that's the first part done. Now I'm going to work on the frame itself and work out exactly what I'm doing with that, and then we'll bring the two bits together, measure up and work out exactly where it all goes, and the next time you see it, all of that should be in place, and then we'll be ready to put the television in place and then start reassembling the instrument panel, console, etc., and the rest of the sim. So let's get on with that. Okay, so here is the new structure. You can see we've got the shelf for the TV actually attached to the wall now, which keeps it solidly in place with a concrete screw. And then I've placed that exactly midway into the space that's available, so that the TV will definitely fit. And then the structure for the console itself goes a little bit off to the right, which is correct. It should be. In fact, it should be further to the right, but I can't manage that and do what I want to do. I have redone that structure a little bit, so I've moved the middle leg, and you can see on the outside here, I've moved the back leg to the outside, and I've added a front leg that wasn't there before, also on the outside. And so that footwell distance there is now, I think, about 560 millimeters, and the pedal width is 540 millimeters. So it should fit in and go further back than it previously did, which means I'm going to need to rebuild the pedal mounting. So that'll be my next job. And then I need to work out what I'm doing on the side here, where I normally put my iPad mount and other bits and pieces. I think I can reuse the existing structure for that, but I may need to alter it a little bit. So let's get on with that. And once we've got that structure in place, I'll be able to start rebuilding the console. So let's get on with that now. Right, next stage then. So I have extended out the baseboard so I can get the pedals further away. You can see the nuts, the bolts onto which the pedals will fix. And I've actually lined that up exactly with the center of the left-hand side of the cockpit where the yoke will be. And I've bolted it to the wall just for extra security so it doesn't drift out of position. And then I've also restored the bar on the side there, which is where, as you can see, I put the iPad stand, but also I put my side stick. Now, the mechanism that I use for the side stick, which lets it slide in and out, will not work properly because there's not enough space left. So I'm going to have to figure out something else for that, but that's just a minor problem. And yeah, everything else is coming along nicely. So next major step is to unpack the TV, put the feet on and get it stood up on the shelf and make sure it is as it appears to be. And then once that's in place, I can start putting the rest of the console back together and get back to a running sim, which I think will take me most of the rest of the day. So unlikely I'll do the actual flying, but yeah, I should be done today, so I can start using it this week. So, nice little project. Still a little bit more to document, so there'll be a couple more clips coming. But yeah, for now, I'm quite happy. I'm going to go away and unpack that TV. Okay, here is the TV mounted on the shelf. It all fits, which is nice. You can kind of see what I'm going for now. So I need to cable it up, and then I can start rebuilding the rest of the sim. And then we'll put some power in and make sure it works. Okay, the TV works. Gonna go through the setup. Obviously you don't want to watch me do this. Once I've got this all up and running and I'm happy with it, then I'll take off, actually I'll leave the screen defender on until I've got the whole thing set up. And yeah, but we'll start putting the rest of the sim back together, and when I've got that ready to go, I will show you the next clip. Okay, so here is the finished article. So you can see the whole console is a bit further left than it was. There's now space between it and the wardrobe, which wasn't there before. I have added additional supports, which I showed you in a previous clip. The pedals have gone further back, but not as far back as I was originally planning. I brought them forward a bit because the seating position didn't quite work. Basically, this chair is not low enough. If it were lower down, then I could feasibly stretch my legs and tilt it back a bit, I think. I could feasibly stretch my legs further forward without fouling the instrument panel and still be able to use the yoke in its current position, but otherwise I can't, and so I moved it. Shelf on the left is now working. I've gotten rid of the mechanism that slides that joystick in and out. If I want to use it as a side stick, I probably am going to need to find a way to do that, as it's not really in the right position, but that's a problem for another day. Other than that, you've seen the pedestal, that all works as before. I've got the top off the glare shield right now, I'll show you why. I think I mentioned in a previous clip I was going to do some work on the glare shield power supply, and I have. So if we look in here, this is the 5-volt line, this is the 12-volt line here. 5-volt line just went straight to the Open Cockpit's MCP as the only device that required 5 volts. And then the 12-volt line went over here to the base shaker card, and then it went from the base shaker card over to the relay card, which turns lights, etc. on and off, and then it ran down to the lights themselves, and you can see that the lights are on. And that was fine, but the problem was, when I was using my base shaker, and when it was shaking a little heavily, and the manual does warn you that it can draw a lot of current, and indeed it can, depending on the impedance of the transducer. I think mine is 4 ohms, so it's not terrible, but if it was higher, it would draw more power. But what I found was when it was shaking quite hard, and I had the lights on, the lights were flickering, and I realised that basically the total load on that one line was not enabling all the devices to draw as many amps as they needed. Now the power supply is more than capable of it, so that wasn't the problem. The problem, I think, was it was all being drawn off one rail on the power supply, and of course the power supply's capacity is split across multiple connectors. So I made up an additional 12-volt line for the power supply, and then I've run that one in here. So this is new, and then this runs directly to this card, the base shaker card, and powers that directly. And then this existing 12-volt line here no longer goes to the base shaker card, it goes directly to the switch card and then to the lights, and that gives you the power that you need. And then the other thing was this hub. I was running this as a passive hub. Oops, sorry, you can't see that. I was running this as a passive hub because these aren't particularly power consuming devices, so I didn't think that would be a problem. But I was finding on startup that fairly frequently I was getting USB device not recognized messages, which often indicates that your hub doesn't have enough power for the device's startup, and so I figured that it needed to be powered. So I went and found the power supply for it and discovered that it's a 5-volt power supply, which is good because I already had a 5-volt line. This is the 5-volt line, which runs to the Open Cockpit's MCP. So just basically split that and put a cable on it there. You can see, and now we've got power going to this hub, 5-volt power, and then the 5-volt goes on to the Open Cockpit's MCP. But it is enough for both of them, so I can switch that on, and that's fine. And yeah, so now I no longer have device errors on startup. Right, lastly, let's just take a seat in the cockpit. So this is basically my position. I'm holding the camera pretty much directly in front of my eyes, so that you're seeing pretty much what I would see. And as you can see, with the TV as it is now, the horizon line is pretty much at my eye line, which is what I wanted. I need to fiddle a bit with the zoom and other things, I suspect, to get it absolutely bang on. But it's already a lot better than it was when I had the screen kind of up here and I had to do the whole tilt the horizon thing. So I'm pretty happy that I made that investment and made that change. And yeah, it looks pretty good. I've done a bit of flying with it already, and I'm quite happy with that. I'm sitting on the ground at Southampton in the Kodiak at the moment, about to go for a fly. And I'll probably make a video of some description on the Kodiak, a flight video, because it's a plane I'm rather liking at the moment since it got updated, and it's quite a fun experience. I look forward to that on the channel sometime fairly soon. But that's it. That's it for this set of updates. As always, whenever I make a big update to the temporary sim, I find myself wondering just how temporary this sim is going to be. I strongly suspect I'll have this for probably the rest of this year and maybe into next year. I don't think, honestly, I'm going to get into building the next sim, certainly before the summer this year, and probably not even then, because of the amount of work that needs to be done in the build room and the renovation I need to do to make the floor flat and other things. So yeah, I think we're probably in this sim for quite a while. So let's stop calling it the temporary sim, and we'll just call it the front bedroom sim, because that's kind of what it is. And there may be a little bit more work to be done on this just to improve some aspects of it as we go forward. Work that maybe I wouldn't have done if I still thought this was going to be purely temporary. So again, if I do any of that kind of work, then you will see it here on the channel. Anyway, thank you for watching, as always. Hopefully some of this was useful to you. If you've got any questions about any of this work or the power supply stuff or any of the things that I'm doing here, please leave a comment under the video. I'll try and answer all of my comments as quickly as I can, and I'm happy to give you whatever advice I can to help you in your sim projects. Come back sometime, hopefully in the next few weeks, for my next video. Not entirely sure what it will be yet. Probably, as I say, a flight video in the Kodiak, but it could be any number of things. Life tends to get in the way of making these things. It's purely a hobby. I don't have that much time, and it does take a lot of time to make them, so I do appreciate the time you spend watching them. If you like the video, it would be helpful if you could click the like button, certainly from an algorithm point of view. If you disliked it, click the dislike button. It's useful for me to know. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, you are, of course, most welcome. But I would suggest that you also click the little bell icon so you get notified when I publish a video, because as you can tell, the schedule on this channel is pretty erratic. But with all that said, thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you back on the channel very soon.